Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we are continuing with part 2 of our ChiBi Let's Talk Lore series trilogy. In part 1, we mainly focus on the fighting between Liu Bei and Cao Cao, but in part 2, we'll shift our focus farther south to Wu, as Cao Cao's army now stared down at Sun Quan and the mighty Yangtze River as the last obstacles to a united China. So while everything was happening in part 1, news of Liu Bei's death and Cao Cao's advance started to slowly filter into Sun Quan's court. Sun Quan responded by first garrisoning his army at Chaisang as he summoned his court to decide on the next step. At this meeting, the strategist Lu Su volunteered himself to use Liu Bei's memorial service as an excuse to travel to JiangXia to meet with Liu Qi and Liu Bei in order to persuade Liu Bei and the rest of the Jin province loyalists to ally with Wu, or even perhaps become vassals to Wu as they resist Cao Cao together. Now, many of you might think that with Cao Cao's army bearing down on the remnants of the Jin province and Wu, that it would not take much for these two parties to come together. But if we look back at the history of these two neighbors, then we will see that this would be a rather uneasy alliance at best. Because let's not forget that Sun Quan's father, Sun Jian, died at the hand of Huang Zu, who was a subordinate of the late Liu Bei. And the first thing that Sun Quan did after consolidating power in the south following his older brother Sun Ce's assassination is to launch an attack to kill Huang Zu to avenge his father. So these two sides are certainly not friends. To make matters worse, if we remember in part 1, we mentioned that Zhuge Liang had suggested to Liu Qi to get himself a military role in order to save himself from Lady Cai by asking his father for a garrison post in JiangXia. This military post was set up precisely to defend the Jin province from farther aggression by Wu following Huang Zu's death. So before we find out if Lu Su's visit will bear any fruit, let's revisit Liu Bei's side of the story. So, as Lu Su is traveling toward JiangXia, Liu Bei is also deciding on his next step with his own strategist Zhuge Liang. Zhuge Liang suggests to Liu Bei that they should utilize the strength of Wu to fight off Cao Cao, as their own forces are just too small to resist Cao Cao's mighty army. Zhuge Liang argues that if they could get Wu to do most of the fighting, then they can surely find an opportune time to seize an advantage for themselves in the future. Liu Bei nods but questions. The Sun clan has controlled the south for a few generations now, and most of the other famous clans in the south only support the Sun clan. Surely they will have a plan to resist Cao Cao themselves and have the ambition for control of more than just the south. Given this, why would they work with us at all, given that we're down to our last straws here? Zhuge Liang answers, with Cao Cao's million-strong army sitting on their front porch, Sun Quan, who is not even 27 years old, must be nervous and will certainly send someone to us in order to gather more information about Cao Cao's incoming force. Once that messenger arrives, I will use my silver tongue to persuade the South to fight this battle for us. And if the South win, we'll swing west to take control of what's left of the Jin province. And if the North wins, then we'll swing east and take control of the land of Wu for ourselves. All we have to do now is wait for that messenger to come from Wu. Sure enough, not long after this conversation, Liu Qi reports that Lu Su has just docked in JiangXia, bearing gifts in memory of the late Liu Bei. Zhuge Liang smiles and asks Liu Qi if Liu Bei had sent anyone to attend the memorial service of the late Sun Ce. Liu Qi answers no, as the two sides were hostile to each other ever since Sun Jian's death, so of course, no one from the Jin province would be invited to Sun Ce's funeral. With that said, Zhuge Liang is now convinced that Lu Su is here not to attend any memorial service, but rather to scout out more information about their forces and, more importantly, Cao Cao's forces. So Zhuge Liang turns to Liu Bei and tells him to not answer any of Lu Su's questions, and if Lu Su insists on asking them, then just say that only Zhuge Liang knows. After Lu Su drops off the gift and pays his respect to the late Liu Bei, he meets up with Liu Bei and Liu Qi for dinner. During the meal, Lu Su repeatedly asks Liu Bei about details of battles against Cao Cao. Liu Bei simply answers that in most of the fighting, he just turned tail and ran, so he had no clue about the true strength of Cao Cao's forces. Unsatisfied with these ingenuous answers, Lu Su points out that Liu Bei had used Zhuge Liang's fire strategy twice against the likes of Xiahou Dun and Cao Ren, so how could he claim to have no idea about the strength of Cao Cao's army? To answer this, Liu Bei simply said both of those battles were commanded by Zhuge Liang, so if Lu Su really wanted to answer, then it was best to ask Zhuge Liang in person. With no hesitation, Lu Su asked if it was alright to invite Zhuge Liang to the dinner as well. So Liu Bei quickly summons Zhuge Liang, who had been secretly waiting this whole time in the back. So Lu Su quickly compliments Zhuge Liang first on his success at such a young age, and then asks the hard-hitting questions of what their plans are going forward, as Cao Cao will surely continue to advance against them. Zhuge Liang sighs and laments that while he knows the weakness of Cao Cao's army, it's unfortunate that they do not have enough men or time to fight back now. So in order to regroup for a showdown in the future, the plan right now is for them to head farther south toward Cangwu, because the administrator there, Wu Chen, is an old friend of Liu Bei. Hearing this, Lu Su answers, Wu Chen has but one commandery and has few troops and even fewer supplies. Why not come instead to Wu and ally with Sun Quan, who have 6 full commanderies and countless skilled generals and troops at his disposal? Zhuge Liang replies, well, Sun Quan is much stronger than Wu Chen. Liu Bei and Sun Quan are complete strangers, so it is probably awkward for both of them to work together. Lu Su, whose job is here to secure alliance, points out to Zhuge Liang that his brother, Zhuge Jin, is currently working for Sun Quan, so clearly the two lords can bond over this relationship. And if Liu Bei is willing, Lu Su would love to invite Zhuge Liang on behalf of Sun Quan to travel back to Wu to meet with the court, as the two sides can discuss a potential alliance. After Liu Bei pretended for a few times to refuse this offer, Liu Bei finally gave in to Lu Su's insistence and gave permission to Zhuge Liang to travel to Chaisang to meet with Sun Quan and work out a potential alliance between the two sides. So Zhuge Liang and Lu Su departs JiangXia and heads back to Chaisang by boat. During the trip, Lu Su repeatedly warns Zhuge Liang not to tell Sun Quan about the real size of Cao Cao's forces, as underreporting Cao Cao's strength will be the only way to convince the young lord to fight back instead of suing for peace. Every time, Zhuge Liang just smiles and tells Lu Su that he already knows what to say. When they finally arrive, Lu Su situates Zhuge Liang in an inn to wait to be summoned, as he has to first go back to court to report to Sun Quan. Now, as Lu Su got to court, something fell off right away, as all the other court officials were bickering away and Sun Quan looked troubled. When Lu Su announced that he has brought news back from JiangXia, Sun Quan showed little interest and threw a scroll at Lu Su's feet and said, Cao Cao had just sent this letter to us. Lu Su opens up the scroll and reads the letter. It says, recently, I have followed the emperor's command to attack those who have wronged the empire. As I march south, Liu Cong has surrendered, and the people of the Jin province are happy to reunite once again with the empire. Now as I lead an army of 1 million strong, with skilled generals numbering in the thousands, I hope to forge an alliance of the ages with you, and may we conduct a joint hunt at JiangXia to crush Liu Bei and split the spoils of war. Lu Su finished reading, slowly looks up at Sun Quan and asks, My lord, what are your thoughts about this matter? Sun Quan replies, I have not yet decided. Lu Su then peeked at the head strategist Zhang Zhao, and Zhang Zhao replies, Cao Cao now possesses an army of 1 million strong. Previously, we had the Yangtze River as our natural barrier, so we could resist with a smaller force. But now, with Cao Cao in full control of the Jin province following Liu Cong's surrender, we now share this river with him. Plus, Cao Cao comes in the name of the emperor, so it is best that we surrender and preserve the work of my lord's forefathers and spare the citizens of Wu of the cruelties of war. Sun Quan listens but does not answer. Instead, he dismissed the court and heads inside to rest. On his way out, he glanced at Lu Su, who quickly understood his master's symbol and followed Sun Quan inside. Once inside and out of earshot of the court, Sun Quan grabs hold of Lu Su's hand and asks him what he really thinks. Lu Su answers, "It is indeed true that Cao Cao has come with the backing of the emperor and a giant army, and perhaps it is best for people like himself and Zheng Zhao to surrender. But my lord is the only one who cannot surrender. Strategists like myself can retire and live out a comfortable life at home, or even get new jobs under Cao Cao and live out much of the same life. But my lord, if you surrender, then at best you get a fancy title and some servants to serve you till you die. But you no longer be a lord of anything. And if I learned anything from your father, it is that he wished to become more than just a lord, as he wanted to use the resources of the south to herald in a new kingdom. So even if it is in our best interest to surrender, you cannot surrender." Sun Quan agrees but laments that there are so many in court who are scared to fight and have been waving the white flag before the fight have even found us. How can we rally our men when the enemy is so strong? Lu Su answers, "I have brought back Zhuge Liang, the brother of our court official Zhuge Jin, who now serves as Liu Bei's head strategist. He claims to know Cao Cao's forces inside out after fighting them, so hopefully we can use him to persuade our people that we have a chance to stand and fight." Sun Quan agrees and issues orders for all court officials and generals to gather tomorrow, as he plans to show off the best of the south to Zhuge Liang and hear what this sleeping dragon has come to say. To find out how Zhuge Liang convinces Wu into an alliance with Liu Bei against Cao Cao, come back tomorrow as we'll continue our lore series.